Welcome back to our Inside the Issues special hour. The people who run this country are obsessed with Russia. We hear that every day. Weirdly, they prefer to ignore China, at least in public. In private, they're taking a lot of money from China. But what do China's leaders think about us? Well, it turns out they think a lot about Donald Trump and his tough posture on trade. Are they impressed? Well, we asked Michael Pillsbury. He is director of the Center on Chinese Strategy at the Hudson Institute and a frequent traveler to China. He's also the author of maybe the single best book on the subject, The 100-Year Marathon, China's Secret Strategy to Replace America as the Global Superpower. Michael Pillsbury, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
There was a surprising piece written by a Chinese expert in the Financial Times recently that described the Chinese leadership's view of Donald Trump. And it came as, I think, something as a surprise if you just follow the news coverage of Trump in this country. It said, essentially, Chinese leadership believes that our president is playing a kind of three-dimensional chess. He's a brilliant tactician, and that they fear he's outflanking them strategically. Do you think that's right?
Yes, I was in Beijing a week ago, and I think I heard pretty much the same thing, that they think President Trump is basically the superior president out of the last 5 or 6 that ever dealt with China, and that he's done the most to alter the relationship. He's really got their attention. They're quite concerned that there's something deeper going on than they're aware of. So you get this sense that the Chinese leadership and the advisors to the leadership are afraid of being outsmarted by President Trump.
It's a little odd from a non-expert's point of view because it doesn't seem like his posture has been that aggressive. Is it just that he's the only president to fight back at all, or do they think more is coming?
Both. I think he's distinguished himself as fighting back at all, number one. Number two, the details and the depth of his allegations in these several White House reports he's released are really quite stunning to the Chinese. He's basically alleging that they stole their way to the top. They've had forcible technology transfers from U.S. companies, these outright stolen technology, and that they sort of have an illegitimate path to be number 2 in the world. That he would say these kinds of things, especially this term he's used in some reports, economic warfare, that China is committing economic warfare against America and other countries. This is really quite astonishing to them. They're used to being, if you will, coddled or spoken politely to. So this is really quite a shock. And it's working, I think.
Do they agree with the assessment fundamentally? When you speak to them candidly, do they acknowledge that there is some truth in the president's description of their behavior?
No, they're quite firm that this is all lies, defamation. The American companies who've testified to our trade representative's office over the last 6 months are all, making up stories. They're adamant, denying everything. And this, frankly, Tucker, makes it awfully hard to negotiate. They haven't met us not even halfway. They haven't met us 1/4 of the way yet. So I'm pessimistic in the short term. Obviously, if President Xi and President Trump get together again, if the terms are right, then some kind of a deal could be struck. But I think we're a long way from that.
Do you think that so far this change in our attitude toward China has helped the United States? Have we gotten something out of this?
Well, it's kind of a strange reaction, but we've certainly got the attention of the European Union. The European Union Commissioner, Mr. Juncker, came here not less than a month ago and now wants to work toward zero subsidies and zero tariffs with the United States. This, too, Tucker, is stimulating paranoia in China. They now are beginning to think that President Trump is so smart, as you say, playing three-dimensional chess, that he has got the Europeans on his side. And they've issued a set of warnings just in the past week to the Europeans not to fall for President Trump's trap.
I mean, is there something kind of wonderfully amusing about this story, or is it just me?
It's partly just you, but don't forget, President, you want to see some change and some aggressive steps, and the president has certainly done that. I think the next step is going to be to see what the first Chinese offer will be after these 2 months now of basically no contact. They've been making hints. They've dropped a couple of hints in newspapers recently that they're willing to renegotiate investment terms with us. They're willing to say that there may have been some minor violations by a few Chinese companies or local provinces, but certainly the center, the Communist Party and President Xi, never did anything wrong. So we haven't come very far, but yes, I think it's refreshing to see this level of respect for the United States. I haven't seen it in 40 years. Usually the Chinese look down on us as not being very bright.
Yes. And for good reason. Michael Pillsbury, thank you for that perspective. It was great.
Thanks, Tucker.
Well, tonight we continue our ongoing investigation into the world of horse meat. We recently talked to someone who advocates eating horses, but because this is a balance show, tonight we're going to speak to a horse advocate horrified by the idea of barbecuing Seabiscuit. That's next. Welcome back to our special Inside the Issues Hour. We recently touched on a little-known but important issue in American life, horse meat. We interviewed a man called Dave Duquette. He came on the show and argued that Congress ought to change the law to allow slaughter and sale of horse meat for human consumption.
It's mainly a welfare issue, Tucker. It's the welfare of horses in the horse world is it's gone downhill ever since. When you have something that doesn't have any value at all, which is what the unwanted horse is. We have a huge history of horse meat consumption in the United States.
We got a remarkable response to that segment. Horse meat is uncommon in this country, very common in Mexico and in France. Nancy Watson is not impressed by that. She's president of the Safe Food, Safe Horses Coalition. She thinks the idea of serving Black Beauty at Thanksgiving dinner is repugnant. She saw that segment, asked to come on to state her case, and of course we were glad to have her. And Nancy, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Tucker.
So the argument is from the other side, and again, I'm agnostic on this, though I don't plan to have a Chevalburger anytime soon, but the argument is that there are a lot of unwanted horses, and we did find a lot of news stories describing abandoned horses, and that this market in horse meat might be a solution to that. That's the argument anyway. What is your response?
There are no unwanted horses in America. Just recently, MPDI published a poll taken just a few months ago where it showed 1.2 million homes available for horses in need. It's a matter of rehoming them and making the effort to find them a new home. There are no unwanted horses. It's a manufactured crisis by the small faction of horse meat eating people in the United States who want to bring that industry back.
You said it's a threat to public health. How so?
Well, the FDA, the government agency responsible for public health and food safety, classifies horses as companion animals. We raise them in the United States as athletes, workmates, and companions. So they're medicated with hundreds of toxic chemicals and pharmaceuticals that are banned for use on livestock or food-producing animals. And we're putting these horses into the food supply. And, you know, we're contaminating the food supply knowingly. We supply 2/3 of the horses that are slaughtered for human consumption in Mexico and in Canada.
Now, why would, and I know that you're sincerely, gravely opposed to eating horse, but why would people go to all this effort to argue on behalf of eating horses when there are perfectly good cows available, for example? What is the appeal of horse meat?
That's a great question. You know, the cost of raising horses for slaughter is way more than the cost of raising cows for slaughter. And the slaughter process is much more costly for horses. They have 5 times more blood than a cow. You know, it's just a messy process. I can't fathom why anybody would want to slaughter a horse. They're physically, you know, they have the long muscular necks, so the head restraints don't work, the captive bolt doesn't work. I really don't know why anybody wants to bring that industry to the United States.
Do you think there's something degrading of a nation about eating horses?
Personally, I do, yeah. But honestly, our fight is about public health and food safety.
Right.
There is
I
a
understand.
crisis. We're contaminating the food supply with toxic horses. Horse meat that's sourced from U.S. horses is toxic.
And there's something awful about it. I agree with you. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I think I'm on your side. Thank you very much for that. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you, Tucker.
New York Mayor Bill de Blasio has isolated the main cause of America's problems. We'll give you a hint. It's a certain cable news channel. We'll tell you more as our Inside the Issues special continues after this.
Let it go, make my body go, make our bodies higher and higher.